too, as if he were conserving his energy for the decisive moment. He saw himself as the tough alpha male, ruling a bloodthirsty pack of wolves with ruthless discipline. Only at first glance did his marked passivity and the small round professor's spectacles perched on his aquiline nose seem to contradict the mask-like nature of his face. In truth, these were precisely the elements possessed by the man who knows that, rather than having but 2 hands at his disposal, he can call on 1,000 at any hour, and for whatever purpose. And so Ransner never came across as horrific or terrifying, but more like a walking statue, an allegory of power incarnate, more credible than the Reichsführer SS, more Himmler than Himmler himself, as if the latter were a copy of Ransner, rather than the other way round. They'd driven in an open-top military car along bumpy country lanes where the impressions left in the mud by hooves, boots, and tanks had moulded into a chaotic relief. 2 rows of motorcycles ahead of them, 2 rows of motorcycles behind. The sun shone, and he'd sweated beside Ransner in the back seat, wondering what to expect. From the start, the Obersturmbannführer had treated him with that relaxed indulgence of the higher-ranking officer, a manner he'd grown up with and was adept at nurturing. Superiors liked him, and not exclusively on account of his physical appearance, his thick straw-blonde hair, his perfect Aryan features with their youthful mien. They immediately felt that he would accept them for what they wanted to be, irrespective of what it was. This reassured them and stirred paternal feelings. Out of the corner of his eye he looked at the gently rolling countryside, the fields ripe with corn and the dark green lush woodland in the distance, while Ransner chatted to him about his future tasks. As Sturmbannführer, he would translate Ransner's orders into concrete plans. "You are to find Jewish hideouts," he said casually, as if discussing berries that need picking in the woods. "I don't care how you go about it, but you have to find all of them. A single hideout you fail to unearth could be the breeding ground for a new plague. Just bear that in mind." A single hideout. The slight Pole in front of him knew this too. The man had hunched his shoulders to shield his neck from the cold drizzle, clutching with his left hand the lapels of his worn leather jacket. "Almost there," he said to the German, who from his Aryan height regarded him indifferently as one might glance at a dog scurrying past. This pole was the necessary means to a necessary end. No more, and no less. The wretch would do all he could to stay alive. Right now, here between the eavesdropping houses, in front of the blind, dripping windows which were crammed with eyes and ears, he could give the man the order to drop his trousers and start masturbating, and he would do it. Just like the Jews of Turk, back in the first year of the war, who sang as they crawled alongside the pews in their synagogue, while having their bare buttocks whipped. Just like the Jew who'd been so scared he shat himself, then wiped his excrement over the faces of the other Jews. Because he'd been given the order, because the execution of even the most perverse order harboured the promise of life, like an encrypted message that only the recipient could understand. Ransner had registered the disgust and fascination on the face of his new Sturmbannführer with apparent impassivity. He'd briefly tapped him on the shoulder to bring him round again, while the Jews, their faces smeared with shit and their backsides spattered with blood, danced ring-a-ring-a-roses to the laughter of their tormentors, before being summarily stabbed to death. "Why don't we just shoot them?" he had asked Ransner, when the Jews were just bodies collapsed on top of one another in the middle of a slowly expanding red puddle. "Too loud in here," was Ransner's terse reply. "Bad for the eardrums." They'd left the synagogue so it could be set alight. From somewhere